Jerusalem, the first century. A riot has broken out in the temple complex. An angry mob has seized a man named Paul, dragged him out of the sacred precinct, and is actively beating him in the streets. Roman guards hear the uproar and intervene. They pull Paul from his would-be murderers and secure him in heavy chains. But instead of taking this chance to flee into the safety of the garrison, Paul stops on the barrack stairs and makes an unusual request. He asks for permission to address the very people who were just trying to kill him. He stands battered before the religious establishment, raises a hand, and begins speaking to them in their native Hebrew tongue. The murderous noise falls completely silent. This is an incredibly dangerous calculation. Standing before hostile listeners, Paul decides to publicly confess his violent, shameful history to the people who already want him dead. Our natural instinct is to bury our worst mistakes. We hide the chapters of our lives where our passion was misdirected, where we hurt people, or where we were aggressively wrong. Shame relies on silence. It tells us that our failures must be kept locked away if we want to maintain any credibility. Paul understood a difficult truth. A dark past does not automatically disqualify you from a meaningful future. The raw, unedited truth of your worst moments is often the exact platform required to build your testimony. Before he was the Apostle Paul, he was Saul of Tarsus. He was part of the elite. Educated in Jerusalem under the respected Rabbi Gamaliel, he was deeply religious, fiercely disciplined, and absolutely convinced of his own righteousness. He was also on a mission to destroy the early followers of Jesus. Saul went house to house, dragging men and women out into the streets to throw them in prison. He possessed official authority from the high priest to hunt down anyone connected with this new movement. He genuinely believed he was doing God's work by erasing these people. It is a sobering reality. You can be intensely, sincerely religious and be entirely wrong at the same time. Saul wasn't looking for a new path when he set out for Damascus with his arrest warrants. God forcefully intercepted him. God didn't offer a gentle nudge or a quiet feeling of conviction. He knocked Saul completely flat in the middle of the road, blinding him with a light brighter than the midday sun to halt his momentum entirely. A voice spoke from the light, asking a single question. "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" This question forced Saul to look at his actions from a completely different vantage point. Lying in the dirt, Saul asks, "What shall I do, Lord?" That question is the sound of total surrender. In an instant, he abandons his own violent agenda and submits entirely to God's assignment. The physical consequence of this encounter is immediate. The powerful, highly educated leader is left completely blind. His authority is stripped away, and he has to be led by the hand into the city like a dependent child. For 3 days he sits in darkness, until a man named Ananias arrives. Ananias is a follower of Jesus. He knows exactly who Saul is, and he has every logical reason to be terrified of him. Yet God sends Ananias directly into the danger zone to heal him. When Ananias walks into the room, he places a hand on his would-be oppressor and calls him Brother Saul. It is a profound display of radical, unmerited grace. Saul's sight returns, and he doesn't just sit quietly with his guilt. He gets baptized, regains his strength, and immediately begins preaching in the synagogues that Jesus is the Son of God, declaring the exact message he had dedicated his life to erasing. Divine transformation produces a visible change in direction. It moves beyond internal emotion to reshape the physical actions of a life. This brings us back to Paul, decades later, chained on the steps in Jerusalem. He stands before the mob and recites his violent resume. His history now serves as proof of the unbelievable, restorative power of Jesus. In God's hands, your history is raw material. He takes your darkest mistakes, your misdirected zeal, and the things you are most ashamed of, and weaponizes them as the most compelling evidence of his grace. This public defense mirrors a cornerstone of the contemporary Black American Christian experience, the testimony service. It is a dedicated time to stand up in front of the community and speak plainly about surviving through grace. This is a community whose history is steeped in profound sorrow and systemic persecution. They survived the unthinkable by refusing to hide their scars and openly testifying about the God who delivered them through the fire. There is a deep, urgent responsibility for the older generation to pass down the exact stories of how they overcame adversity. Silence deprives the next generation of the evidence they need to navigate their own trials. You cannot let shame convince you that you are too far gone, or that your past disqualifies you from your purpose. Your story belongs to the people who need to hear it. The mandate is clear. When the children ask how you survived a hardship, how you made it out of the darkness, you have to tell them what you know. Just like Paul standing in chains on those temple steps, you have a duty to stand exactly where you are, look your history in the eye, and boldly declare the story of the grace that rebuilt you.